Welcome to the 5th episode of the 6th series of the Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience. Listen in as we share our career stories, relive the moments that shaped us, and voice our opinions as loudly as we like about all manner of CX subjects. I'll be your host, Clare Muscutt, and in today's episode, I'll be talking to an incredible community member from Tennessee. She has more than 20 years of experience in contact centres across various verticals and functions and has a passion for conversation analytics as a necessary technology on the path to improving business performance. She marries both her operational knowledge and her innovative thought leadership to guide and consult with top brands on how to achieve their business objectives and is driving transformational change within customer success. Let me introduce you to today's inspiring guest, CX sister, Lauretta Campestre. Hey Lauretta,
Hi,
how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to the Women in CX podcast. We're absolutely overjoyed that you're joining us today. And welcome to everybody who's listening or watching along wherever you are in the world. So we may as well jump straight in and ask the first question that I ask all of my guests. How have you found your way to the Women in CX community and how's it been going so far?
Well, so as you know, my marketing team is getting ready for a London users conference where we're going to invite all of our users together. And we've had great success in establishing a women's summit. And so I think we reached out to you, Claire, to come and join us there. And then as a result of that, our team and your team worked out a lovely corporate membership. So many of my CallMiner friends are now also members. And so that's kind of how we got here. Since being in the community, I've already dove in and the first thing I found was there's so much and that's a good thing. And the content and the resources are expansive. It's not just, journey mapping. It's not just how I look at customer effort. It really is truly touching every point of CX. And that just took my breath away. One of the things that I'm working on right now at CallMiner is journey mapping.
Oh.
And so I got to listen to Yana's effective journey mapping webinar. And it was just brilliant because she had very simple best practices. So they're easy to implement. And so it's just, listen to that for about 20, 30 minutes and had actionable things that I could take away and implement. So it was so far so good. And I think it's only going to go up from here. So thanks for having us.
No, yeah, amazing. And I'm very much looking forward to speaking at your conference. It's June 20th, isn't it? Yeah, not long to
Yeah, it's
go
coming
now.
up. I know
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, I've just got back from speaking in South America. So yeah, back in
Wow.
some, yeah, well, during the pandemic, so I never, wasn't out and about
Yeah.
speaking. It's so lovely to be back doing that. But yeah, thank you so much
Yes.
for being our first technology company as a corporate member. I think it's so important,
Yeah.
isn't it? Talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion and putting your money where your mouth is and doing things like having women's resource groups that you then buy memberships for. I think it's a really great signal of intent. So thank you, CallMiner.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I'm sure the audience would love to know more about you, who you are, and your career journey to get to where you are today. Tell us your story, Loretta. Tell us about you.
Well, I don't know that it's an exciting one, but it certainly is mine. So essentially, I broke out into work life as a frontline agent on the phone.
Yeah.
And don't hold this against me, but I I worked for a collection agency for about a decade, and so that gave me incredible perspective. What I found through doing that, because those are really tough conversations to have,
Really tough.
and very. What I found is there was a passion and a skill for helping people, right? And and so what that then led to was, all right, if I was the frontline agent, I'm helping my consumers
Mhm.
resolve debt, right? And then I found a way to help my fellow collection agents on the phone by jumping into the quality assurance program. And then I went into the training program. And then eventually I started helping our clients realize the value that our agents were providing, right? So I came into client services. And in client services is where I started asking the question, how can we do this smarter, not harder, right? This is a little while ago. But even then, technology in the contact center and making those operations easier and more efficient was definitely top of mind, still top of mind today. But that journey led me to CallMiner. And so I actually implemented the CallMiner platform in my contact center to help us get inside of the call. We're held in the collection industry to very high standards in terms of privacy, financial care, and being able to assure that type of quality and compliance. We needed to be able to do it at scale. So that's when I found CallMiner, and I couldn't ignore that there was an interesting alignment between my own values and the need to help, right, with their values, right, and their need to help drive business performance. So I like to tell people that instead of, maybe some people run from a bad situation at work, I was running towards my next big opportunity. So I joined CallMiner, which was quite scary because I was a contact center junkie, not a software tech person by any stretch of the imagination. But that drive, that passion to help, just served me very well. And so now I'm helping our broader customer success organization map out the right engagements and activities to get our customers to success. So it's been a wild ride, but quite fun.
Yeah, and just such valuable experience, isn't it? Like starting at the front line, understanding operationally how these things work. And I think technology is technology, isn't it? But like understanding how people work and how contact centers operate and what's important in terms of what they're trying to drive and the real challenges and barriers that the frontline agents have, I think stands you in such good stead, isn't it? No matter what you go on to do, because you have the reality, the customer and the employee reality, especially like from debt collection as well. That's not the easiest place to drive experiences. I'm always fascinated. I've spoken to about 4 or 5 women in the community who've all come from like this debt collection background, and it wouldn't have been a place I would have thought much customer experience thinking happens, but apparently it does, because
you get an interesting set of conversations that happen. Folks generally, fall out from a brand and in collections for financial reasons, but there's a whole host of CX reasons, right? So having that frontline experience within that industry, I think, is really kind of, to your point, right? Given that unique perspective of operationally, what does it take, and what kind of conversations are actually happening, right? And that's what gets me excited, because I know what kind of conversations are happening, and I know if someone can just look at that 50,000 foot view, then there's a whole host of intelligence that should drive how a brand serves their customers.
Got it. And what was that transition like then? Like, it sounds like it was a bit of a challenge. Was this one of the barriers that you had to overcome to become the woman you are today?
Yeah, it is. Well, so when I think about some of the challenges or the barriers that I've faced over the years, mine was more of a doozy, because it was kind of a trifecta. I came into the workforce quite young because I knew everything, right? So I quickly dropped out of high school, got my general education degree, and hit the scene. And essentially, I was a woman, so I didn't act, look, talk, behave like my male counterparts. I was young, so I was inexperienced, Yeah. And I was undereducated. So it was a challenge. When I made the jump from contact center to software as a service, I found the same things that served me in that arena, which was leaning in on my resourcefulness and leaning in on my resiliency, served me well when I made the leap into software. So essentially, I started in the workforce not knowing a whole heck of a lot of anything. And so I was quick to look at any of the industry associations or groups and communities like this, right, that were out there actively trying to serve, their industry and market. Google became my friend.
Yeah, but it's
Tons.
still my best friend to this day, and now ChatGPT 4, but
See, well, exactly. Look how that's even evolved in the last,
yeah.
so many years. But yeah, so like I kind of got Google educated, right, along the way. And so I think the resourcefulness definitely served me well in that scenario. And then resiliency, as a woman, I didn't, like I said, behave, act, talk like my male counterparts, and that definitely shook them up a little bit. And so there were often times when I was the note taker or I was the one coordinating beverages and whatnot. And that's unfortunate. But the silver lining or the lemonade out of lemons there is I was in the room and I was hearing the conversations. I was actively listening. And at the end of the day, she who controls the pen, note taking, controls the objectives, the outcomes of the meeting, the
The
actions, right?
actions.
The tone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was looking at it from the I can't control how they perceive me, but I can control what I do with it. And I tried to just keep that front of mind. And it so far it served me well.
Mm. So just picking up a few little bits in what you'd said there. So how old
Yeah.
were you when you hit the workforce then? So after high school, how old's that? 18?
17 and a half. Like I
Oh,
came out early. Yeah.
Joe, wow, that's so young, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
do at that age, you do think you know everything. I remember.
Oh my gosh, you couldn't have told me anything
I, I,
different, right?
yeah, I thought I was like a full-on adult at about 15. Now I look back and I think, oh my God, I was like such a baby.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the experience of being a young woman in business really resonated with me, and the struggle to be taken seriously because of your age. Like it seems to be the thing that happens with women now, doesn't it? You're either too young or you're too old or you're something. But the that feeling of like being expected to be the note taker or to make the beverages, that also happened to me on my way up.
Yeah.
And being like very different to your counterpart. So like I started on the front line but in hospitality, worked my way up to
Ah,
be a general manager at 23. And when I was a general manager of restaurants and hotels, pretty much
yeah.
everybody on my region were all white middle-aged men.
Yep.
And I was 23, like a very girly girl as well.
Yeah.
But that sensation of like, looking and being different, and
Yeah.
like also being judged differently even for the same behavior as guys happened to me. So I would be
Ah.
speaking up like and putting my ideas forward, and I get the feedback, you need to tone it down a bit, it's a bit much. And I was like, but he
Mhm.
was sat next to me doing exactly the same. But it's like he got praise, like he's assertive, he's like a leader, but I was like a
Yeah.
bit too much. So I think times have changed and there's a lot more awareness around equality, but like that was really stuck with me, and I know it still happens to women today because I talk to them a
Yeah.
lot, especially women
Yeah.
in their early careers. So yeah, so like
Yeah. Yeah.
be super conscious of not being dismissive. But yeah,
Yep, for
any
sure.
but yeah, so and now you're the VP.
Yeah, so now I'm the AVP of Success Strategy here at CallMiner, and I get to spend my day helping to essentially orchestrate all the activities and engagements that our frontline success owners need to navigate to get our customers realizing value from the platform. Um, and and if I look back, right, every single step along the way to here, to the point you made earlier, frontline agent and the perspective that came with that. to leading the operations, to training them, to all of that has built a unique experience belt that that now I'm in a position where I'm good at what I do. I'm enjoying doing it, and I'm doing it with a platform that I just feel really, really passionate about. So it's all kind of come together now, right? It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Self-actualizing.
Yeah.
So just to kind of move the conversation forward a little bit, I think there's two things I'd really like to dig a little bit deeper into. And I think this is in part going to be about connecting the dots between the conversations that happen at the contact
Hmm.
center and customer experience more broadly. And in terms of what's happening in the CX industry, how quickly it's evolving, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the influence that women have on this, because I suppose like AI is male dominated, tech and SaaS is typically male dominated. There are definitely
Yeah.
a lot more women in non-technical roles, but in terms of leadership and driving the agenda, tends to be more male dominated. So let's start on the CX aspect to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah.
And obviously I was kind of sitting on the technology side and specifically, got your finger right on the pulse of what's going on in contact centers. How do you see CX professionals leveraging contact center interaction data into their CX strategy? And I think just for the benefit of the listeners, maybe giving us a bit of a 101 on what kind of data is coming out of the contact centers about conversations, just so we can all start from the same place.
Yeah, no, that's great. So the way I think about conversation analytics is, contact centers for a long time were able to get some pretty good insights in terms of when a contact happened, when the customer contacted a brand, how long did that contact happen? And this could be call, chat, web, email, what have you. But all of these data points were outside of the interaction, right? Nothing inside of the interaction. The closest you got to inside the interaction were one of three ways. One, survey, which is good because you do get feedback, you get some verbatims from your customers, but the scale or the scope is quite small, and sometimes the results are a little polarizing. The other way was old school QA methods, right, where you have someone actively listening, but again, the scope's quite small. And then finally, just looking at the contact center agent notes, right? And trying to do some kind of text analytics, maybe over the way that the agent summarizes. So that's generally speaking how the contact center was able to yield data. Now, conversation analytics essentially says, great, good, all of that stuff is lovely. But now let's dive inside of the contact, right? Let's get inside of that call. Let's get inside of those email exchanges. Let's get inside of those web forms that the customers are filling out. Let's get inside of those chat interactions or the texting, so that you can start categorizing aspects of those interactions, eventually scoring and overlaying things like sentiment, right, at the beginning or the end of the interaction. So that's what conversation analytics is for me, right? It's an ability to get inside of the call and start to pull data points up that can basically give your CX professionals actionable data. So that's a bit of a baseline there for conversation analytics. Some of the results that they see out of conversation analytics are at the tactical agent level. If you're in a sales environment, if these are the objections that prospects typically give, what are the rebuttals that are most effective, right? Or if a customer calls in and wants to return a product, again, you can look at this in aggregate because you're looking at across 100% of your calls or your chats. If they're returning product A, what are the top three reasons why? Do they not like the color, right? Is it just a little bit wonky with how it closes? I mean, whatever the product is, right? But being able to distill and aggregate that information across 100% of the contacts is really, really, really valuable to the CX professionals. So that's what conversation analytics does.
So just for my own benefit, I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what you're saying is so there's the actual telephone conversation and voice and analytics about what has taken place. So I'm assuming that's some machine learning processing
Mhm.
the conversation,
Yep,
but then it's
yep.
also pulling in data from contact records and texts and messages and everything. So that just aggregates like a view of that customer in that
Mhm.
conversation. And then those conversations are aggregated up to give you data about the operational side. Is that right?
Yep, yep, absolutely.
Hmm.
And from there, calls are happening all the time. You know, conversations are happening all the time. Customer may call in for, I need a new shipment, right? I need a new product shipped to me.
Mhm.
But along the way, that agent and that customer are having conversations about the brand, right? And you're not going to miss any of that, right?
Mm.
And so you get stakeholders that are interested in the data out of conversation analytics, like chief product officers, right? Because they want to know how to improve their product. What are their customers saying? They can look at the surveys, and that's going to tell them, some information. But when they marry the surveys with getting inside of those calls and those chats and texts, it's quite the scope and scale of it all gives them the confidence to make decisions on how to change their product.
Okay. So how are great CX professionals integrating this kind of technology into their CX strategies? What are they doing with it, this data?
Yeah.
Because data is
So
great, right? But if you don't
connecting
do anything with it.
That's right. Well, and I like in our platform, like our platform can do so much, and conversation analytics can do so much. Um, but to your point, if there's not action derived from that, then what are you really doing? What we're seeing is in CX, and the way I've always thought about CX is it's kind of the marriage between customer satisfaction and customer effort, right? So customer satisfaction being, is that customer satisfied with your brand, your product, your service, et cetera, right? And then effort being, are you making it easy for that customer to engage with your brand and do business with, right? And what we're finding is, because conversation analytics can kind of, or does, unlock that black box of inside of the call, CX professionals are now creating scores, because they're able through machine learning to categorize every element of the call. They're able to create predictive scores on customer satisfaction and on customer effort. And once they have score predictors that help decide whether or not our CX is at a red state, a green state, or a yellow state, then they're able to use those predictive scores as smoke alarms,
For the
right?
for the customer like attrition or
For all of it, right? So they're able to
product
say, okay,
problems,
if
everything.
my customer experience score is red, right, I'm going to go and do a deep dive into those conversations across any channel, digital or otherwise, right? And from there, they're deriving insights that help them improve people, process, and technology, right? And so it becomes a continuous improvement mechanism for the CX professionals. So the ones that are truly trailblazing, are taking the contact center data, wielding it in such a way that they get a CX prediction score, right? That then allows them to point their root cause analysis efforts, at something that has the scale and scope that gives them the confidence to make business change. I'll give you an example.
I was going to
Um,
say, can you give me an example? But
yeah, sometimes it's a little nebulous, a
Mm.
little ambiguous when you're talking about it. But when there was a brand earlier this year, and late last year, that I was working with, and it was a fun handbag brand. I didn't get any discounts or anything, but no free bags,
Oh.
but we were working with the brand, and one of the challenges that they had were costs associated to sending new product back out, right? So a product was sent to a customer never got said product. The customer calls and they're like, I didn't get my bag or wallet or what have you. And as part of a good customer experience, that brand just automatically sends, the new product right back out, right? No questions asked. That way they don't put their agent in a really bad scenario trying to troubleshoot something that they have no control over or insight into. And they don't put their customer through a bad experience of trying to sort out what the problem was. Yeah, they just get the bag. Well, the brand was able to leverage conversation analytics to get inside of the calls at scale, right? So 100% of the calls. And they were able to understand that when a bag was ordered from their outlet online system, that system was not equipped to handle apartment numbers. So every time somebody ordered a bag from their outlet online store, if they had an apartment number, right,
Just got lost.
they didn't get their bag.
So it's just loads of little bags like all over America, like lost
somewhere. Yeah, exactly, right. And so what the contact center was able to serve up to the CX professional before that, right, was it's happening a lot in New York, or it's happening a lot from the outlet store, right? But there was nothing ticking and tying these things together. And when they were able to get inside of the call, it was found that every time that apartment number was present, the bag didn't make it to its end destination. And so now the brand was able to, with confidence, right, go to their CIO or technology, right, and say, hey, X% of our bags are having to be reshipped. Of those, and it was, X% is because this outlet online store isn't caring for apartment numbers appropriately. And so they were able to make a systemic change that had measurable impact on their CX scores. And that was how CX professional was able to take contact center data and make a business change, and take it to, like I said, the CIO or CTO or whomever it was, to say we need a new system to care for this because we're losing X dollars because of it.
Wonder how long it would have taken to identify that.
Being in a contact center, and an agent on the phone, I can tell you, I remember, being part of focus groups, right? They, QA or continuous improvement would take us off the phones and they'd say, all right, anything, new challenges coming up for the customers lately, this kind of thing. And, that's always as good as the most recent call that the agent had, because it was, top of mind or what have you. So I don't know the answer on how long it would have taken them to get to it, but I can tell you, woof, right? Like maybe too long.
Yeah, and I just can't get over there's all these little bags there out there somewhere, homeless, like
like and so one of the ways we clued into it was there was this day and age when folks have the cameras attached to the front of the door. Yeah. So they have video of a driver setting the bag on a stoop that had nothing to do with their and so I'm like, oh, these bags they really are just out there in space somewhere not getting utilized.
So yeah. Oh, that's a really good example.
So sad.
Yeah, and I think I'm getting asked more and more frequently about like the connection between being able to leverage data across customer experience, and typically it's being used for things like personalization and marketing, isn't it? So it's really interesting to see at this end, which is kind of when customers are making contact and looking for support, how that's being used to inform business decision making. Because I remember, like, when I was head of CX at a huge retailer, like that didn't have any kind of technology like that. I remember having to go in and because we knew that there's like a problem in a department because like their sales were declining and they were like massively overspent. But I had to like go into the contact center and ask them to download like every single contact and conversation that had happened. Obviously, you would never have seen what was inside the conversation, but they had to manually categorize whether these complaints were about food, environment, service, and being able to take that back then to a senior director and go, yeah, there definitely is a problem and this is what it is. But that took me like weeks to be able to do that. There was no kind of like alert system, so I can really see the value of that.
So now that predictive score that the CX professionals are creating really do, like I said, act as that smoke alarm, right? And when they conduct root cause analysis, they're able to come out with a people, process, or system recommendation for the business to make change. And they're able to do it in a fraction of the time that they were able to do it before.
Yeah, because the smoke alarm goes off.
That's right. That's right.
And now for a quick word from one of our sponsors. We are proud to be supported by Kantar, the world's leading evidence-based insight and consulting company. Kantar CX helps clients define customer and employee experience strategies, better understand their customers via measurement, and in turn improve business outcomes, driving true commercial ROI. To find out more about Kantar's CX practice, please visit the sponsor links on the homepage over womenincx.community. Now back to the episode. Well, this wouldn't be the Inspiring Women in CX podcast without bringing the focus back to women again. So
that's
just
right.
to lead her on from that, I just was wondering a little bit more around how women are actually influencing the uptake of technology and connecting the dots between contact center and CX. Because I've got a few statistics, like 70% of the frontline workforce in contact centers of customer experience more broadly are women, but only 30% of those ever make it into even frontline management. And then when we think about SaaS and tech companies, only 28% of the total employee base are female. 28% at like above senior management level. So like women are massively underrepresented. Not necessarily at the front line in contact centers, because loads of women are there at the front line of customer service, but so few are kind of getting into those positions. And I know I go and talk at a lot of tech vendor kinds of conferences, and most of the time I'm talking to men. In terms of the room, the buyers, the CTOs, the contact center leaders, the decision makers are quite often male. So yeah, I just wondered, like, what's your point of view on how women are shaping this? And
well,
also, one more to add, sorry. So I think I said this earlier, but then no. So only 12% of AI like professionals are women as well. So the people that are designing, developing, delivering the technologies, it's very male. Basically being developed by men, apart from ChatGPT 4, where I found out the CTO was a woman. I was very impressed with that little statistic. But she's one of only 8% of female CTOs. But she did a great job, right? She brought like one of the most game-changing products to market.
Knocked it out of the park. Knocked it out of the park. I mean, I don't know very many people that don't have it like as an app on their phone or on their desktop, right? I mean, she's knocked it out of the park. But your point's valid. You know, the stats are saying, and they're true, because like you said, you go to an event and you're talking to a sea of men with the male bias, and the reality is we've got a long road still yet to go to get that kind of equilibrium reached. But what I'm finding is where the women have broken through and they've got a seat at the table in CX leadership, and specifically CX tech leadership. They are bringing that desire to understand and know more from more perspectives. And it's just brilliant, right? They, the CX women that I'm talking to are constantly asking, well, what does so and so think about this? Well, how are they thinking about this? Right? They're reaching out and grabbing a diverse group and pulling them in, because they realize that their voice, right, wasn't present for so long. I think that they just inherently see value in collaborating, but collaborating with a diverse group. And so I'm seeing more and more of that. That's the impact that I see on our CX professional women in tech, and the impact they're having on the industry, is that they understand the value of diverse collaboration, and they are, for all intents and purposes, demanding it of their organizations. And it's amazing. The other thing that I'm seeing is more and more allies. I don't have anything other than anecdotal, but I can tell you, when I go into these CX workshops, and we're trying to design a solution that's going to fit that brand and what have you, there are more and more men that are stepping up and looking for that collaboration, right? And stepping up and saying, I'll take the notes, right? So I am encouraged. I think there's still a long road ahead, because it is very, male dominated, and some of those folks don't necessarily have that ally viewpoint. But I am encouraged, at least in my immediate, world. I'm seeing the CX women demand diverse collaboration, and I'm seeing more and more friendly allies take a prominent step. So it's exciting to see it, and I hope that, in 2 years, when we do this podcast again, and we'll do more before then, but that the stats are going to have a stark incline.
It's interesting. So like I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but I've presented about this before. Is the difference that in between how men and women in leadership think, and the point that you raised about collaboration is a very much more female attribute of leadership. So looking for collective wins across the organization, looking for broader representation for decision making, but also a longer term view on return on investment, for example. So men tend to think in shorter term
What's
payoff.
the problem right in front of me?
But also the impact. So it's been proven with science, and I wish I had the statistics on me now.
You're right.
But women have a stronger value placed upon things like social benefit. So we're talking about people, employees, customers, like we are just more attuned to that as as something of high value, whereas men tend to be more like data and numbers oriented. And not to say women aren't commercial, because they absolutely are, but it's just like the how we would get there is much more collaborative, inclusive, and courageous when it comes to things like social benefit and a longer term view. So I think that's the kind of core reason why this issue of diversity in leadership is so fundamentally critical, especially in environments now where like the social and economic and ecological impacts that the world is experiencing definitely needs more of that collaborative, longer range, broader benefit perspective on how and why we do things. So yes, absolutely. I hope in 2 years' time it changes.
I know.
I suppose I'm just really encouraged with our communities for women in customer experience and technology. We're being invited and asked, can you find speakers for these events, because we want better representation. We're being asked, like, can you find me podcast guests, because I want better representation of women.
Love it.
People are coming to us and saying, hey, we've got this role opening. at a leadership level, can you help us source the right person from the community?
That's so great.
I think that the community is like acting as a bit of a vehicle for people to come, knowing that, you know, we've highlighted the problem of, you know, women are 70% of the frontline workforce, but only 30% are getting into even entry-level management. And now there's somewhere to come and say, can you help us? Can we collaborate together? Can we do more stuff? And yeah, and again, just amazing. CallMiner is the first tech company to see that. Come and bring not only your employees as members, but also 5 of your customers as well, which is even more.
We had a brilliant showing at our women's summit last year, and it was, you know, 1 part CallMiner team members and leadership, and 2 parts CallMiner customers. We've got some of the best customers around, and I'm happy to say that I see a lot of women in those CX leadership positions. So, like I said, I'm just, you know, I'm hopeful that this tide is turning. But these communities go a very, very long way. What we experienced at at our inaugural, if you will, event last year was a real connection with those women, because one woman would say, "This is what I've experienced, and I've seen this all over the women in CX community." So I know it's catching, like, you know, fire. But it's a woman would say, "Here's my experience," and nearly every other woman in the room, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's empowerment in that, to say that, "Oh, it's not me."
Yeah, it's
Right?
the system. Yeah.
It's the system, right?
Yeah.
And then you get
It's
a bit more
patriarchy.
confidence. Yeah, exactly. You get a bit more confidence, you get a little bit more jazz in your step, and you're not as easily to back down, or as easily to sweep your voice under the rug anymore. And I think these communities, like Women in CX, are going to only continue to support that, and even hopefully get us to where we're gaining like ground exponentially, because that confidence is built.
Yes. Yeah, confidence and feeling supported by a whole load of other women who are in the same boat and wanting to rise up together. I think my final point would just be about, you know, when we get there. So, for example, you know, as an AVP, or when I was in senior management in retail, being able to extend the ladder back and be recognizing opportunities to help bring the next person up. I think being like the role models, you know, the role model that you are for women, the thing that we were missing when we were on our way up and looking up and thinking, like, who do I want to be?
Where are they?
Yeah, being
Yeah.
visible, being that person. And I think you're right, the role of guys in this, we can't solve gender equality alone. So those men that are stepping up to say, what don't speak over her, what was it you're going to say? Or asking, what would you like to contribute? Or seeing someone with potential, just because they don't look like them or fit into the same mold. You see someone with potential, being that person that steps out on a limb and says, we should give this person a shot. You know, and there's more women and minorities that men can do that for. I think the faster this problem is gonna be solved. So on that note, is there any like one final piece of advice or takeaway you'd like to leave the Women in CX audience with today?
Yeah, advice is always tricky. So the advice that I'd like to give is actually advice that I received from somebody else, which hopefully makes it carry a bit more weight, because it resonated with me and I'm trying to live it. There was a woman that we invited last year at our women's summit. Her name's Whitney Hawthorne, and she is the creator, leader over the Savvy Working Mom. You guys can look her up. Her mission, her passion is to ensure that women can thrive in and out of the office, right? And so she's got these guides and these amazing, you know, frameworks that she shares with women. So we invited her. What she started out her message with was so provocative, like my jaw hit the ground. And it was provocative, one, because of her mission, right? Ensure women can thrive in and out of the workplace. And it was provocative because what she said made me go, no, that's not right.
I want to know what it is. What was it? What did she say?
I have to give you the build, right? I have to give you the build. She came in and she said, all right, ladies, work-life balance is a myth.
Mm.
And that shook me to my core, because that up until that point in my mind, when someone asked me, like, "What's your goal in life?" Right? It's, "Oh, I just want to make sure I'm balancing work and life," you know? Um, and her point was this: life is what you want balanced. Work is an element of life.
Mm.
To suggest that work should be evenly weighted against every other aspect of your life is setting you up for failure. It's setting you up for burnout. It's setting you up for a host of things that you just won't be able to achieve, right?
Mm.
And so what that caused me to do is say, okay, what are my goals? And how will I achieve those goals?
Mm.
And where does work fit in to help me achieve those goals? Versus, right, looking at my personal calendar and my work calendar and making sure that there's a 50-50 split, because that just, what that did is it set me up for a lot of pain and heartache. And I'm happy to say that advice kind of left me changed. I'm still working it. It's a practice, right? Because it's a total mind shift. But that's the advice I give. Don't seek work-life balance. Seek balance. Work is an element of life, not your life.
Oh, that was great. And really, like,
And
touched me
not
on the shoulder.
mine.
Yeah, no, that's you're paying it forward, aren't you? Passing it on, and now all of our listeners will know about that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it's so easy, isn't it, to make everything about work and trying to fit bits of your life in around that. And I think we're conditioned to just continually and perpetually just work ourselves harder and harder, aren't we? Because of the capitalist mindset that exists in the world about what we're supposed to be striving for. But in a blink of an eye, like, what did you do
Boom.
with your life? Oh, I worked and tried to balance my life with it. I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking that. So thank you for the reminder.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Lauretta, it's been awesome to hang out with you today on the Inspiring Women in CX podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome talking to you today.
Yes. And thank you to everybody who listened or watched this podcast episode. We'll see you all next time. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Inspiring Women in CX podcast with me, Clare Muscutt. If you enjoyed the episode, please drop us a like, subscribe, and leave a review on whichever platform you're listening or watching on. And if you want to know more about becoming a member of the world's first online community for women in customer experience, please check out our website at womenincx.community/membership. Join us again next time, where I'll be talking to one of our community members from the UK about removing the barriers to adoption during digital transformation by considering user well-being. See you all soon.